Book 30 of 2019 was Unshakeable by Tony Robbins. I think this one's going to be quite a short one because like I'd watched a documentary on Netflix about Tony Robbins, and he's absolutely amazing. Like I watch like inspirational YouTube videos and that he narrates like quite often, and he's so kind of like motivating, like some of the things that he says and the way that he kind of conducts himself and the way that he was on this documentary was just so like wow, like he is an interesting person, and he's just like a ball of light, like he's great. So when I saw that he had a book, I was like, oh, this will be really interesting. It was an audio book, so you know I could listen to it in my car, that kind of thing. What I didn't realise was that it was a book on finance, and I was like, damn it, like I've just read, not just, but like a couple of months ago, I've read another finance book about Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it reminds me of that really. It's quite similar in that it's talking about how to be financially free, and I assumed that the whole book would be narrated by Tony Robbins, and it's not. He literally narrates like the first and the last chapter, maybe one in the middle, I can't really quite remember, but the other bit is narrated by people that are into finance, and the voices are really kind of like, you know, like the stereotypical audio book from about 50 years ago, like, you know, the newsreader kind of voice over. It's kind of like that, so it's really boring. And this book's quite worrying because what it's saying is that you should invest in the stock market. And it kind of talks about how in a stock market, what puts a lot of people off is that when they put money in, obviously stocks go up and down, and when they go down they think, oh my god, I've lost all my money, they take all the money out, they sell it really quick. And it was kind of like advising that they're called corrections, and that the stock market works in patterns, and so that when they are going down, that's normal, because then they'll come back up again, and then they'll go down and they'll come back up again. So it's kind of like a pattern thing, and you've got to kind of like ride the waves with it. And it was given some advice about like people that are trying to sell you stock options, and how they're doing it because they get commission on it, and they try and sell certain kind of things. There was some advice to put your money into index funds, because they don't have a kind of percentage that you get charged, like when you are trying to sell and trade or whatever. I don't fully remember everything that it was talking about, to be honest, because it was very, very much centred on the American market. It was a lot on how the American market works, and that's very different to how other country markets work. And a lot of things that were being spoken about, I think, are quite different, like in terms of like financial law and stuff like that. It would be different in the UK. So me listening to it, it was kind of like, you know, great to kind of be given this advice about things, but I'd have to be mindful of whether that actually counts over here, because it did actually mention something about how we've got more protection in finance in England than what we do in America, but I don't know if that's even the case anymore, you know, given our financial history the past couple of years. So I'm worried as well, because when you put money on the wrong stock, like, it doesn't correct itself, you lose all your money. Like, people's businesses go bankrupt quite frequently, particularly, you know, I think it's like the first 50% of all businesses in the first couple of years go bankrupt. Those stock options are not coming back up, like, you have lost your money. Like, so to kind of say, you know, put money on the stock exchange and expect a return, like, is that really good advice? I mean, they kind of suggest that you don't really have to know what you're doing, and you can just kind of put money into anything and just leave it and see, you know, it'll accrue funds. It was almost like kind of saying, like, everything that you put in, you'll get back compound, as long as you don't take it out too soon, if you're being a bit emotional, a bit fearful about it. But actually, like, things go bankrupt, things go wrong, things happen so that you are decimated financially, and like, is that worth the risk? I think you've got to understand that if you put your money on a stock market, like, you are going to risk that money, so don't put it on if you need it. That was kind of the, you know, the caveat to it was, don't put money on there that you're not going to be bothered about losing, because you probably will lose it, but you'll accrue it as well. It was kind of like, I don't know, it didn't make me think, yeah, I want to put all money on the stock market to become financially free. I was kind of like a bit like, oh, actually, yeah, it is quite risky still. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that there was. they kind of mention as well about reducing your tax burden, you know, thinking about like offshore accounts and stuff, and essentially, like, if you're an American and you're wondering about how you should use extra money that you've got to try and, you know, improve your wealth, then yeah, it's a great book. But it's very much like giving you advice about it, but not actually telling you what to do and how to do it. It's kind of saying, you know, go and get yourself someone who is like a broker. Was it a broker? Somebody who kind of, I think, you know, you don't want a broker, I think was the advice. It's broker firms, managing mutual funds. I think there's a certain type of broker that you don't want, but you want one that is an independent one or something like that. So you basically need somebody else to be able to build up this portfolio that you've got. It talks a lot about investing in real estate and stuff like that as well. At least I think it was that one. That might have been the Rich Dad Poor Dad one. But it does make you think about, if I did have spare money, what am I doing with it? Because it doesn't make sense anymore to put them into bonds, because you don't really get much money back from bonds from the bank. You don't get interest the same as you did, you know, on savings accounts and things like that. So, you know, tax ISAs as well are really rubbish interest rates. So you're probably better to invest in the stock market, but you've got to know what you're doing. You can't just, you know, just randomly put some money in and buy some shares, some stock options. You've got to kind of know what you're doing, otherwise you are going to lose your money. So it kind of, you know, made you think about that. You know, people like Warren Buffett was used as an example, but he's like, you know, everything he touches is gold, isn't it? He puts money, he has money to spare that he can invest in things, you know. Once you get to that point where you've got spare money, like, why not invest it and see what happens with it? You're not going to be bothered if you lose it, and you can invest the interest that you've earned on it, you know, the gains you've got on it, so it becomes compound. So it's quite easy to do once you've got some money behind you. But if you are literally like, you have no money and you've maybe got some savings to save for a rainy day, or, you know, if anything disastrous happened, like you lost your job or whatever, you know, if you've only got that, then it's not the book for you. Like, Tony Robbins almost says, like, you know, anybody can be like this, anybody can do this, and it's like, well, perhaps, but you need to get going first. You need to get that ball rolling. I think unless you're in a situation where you have got, you know, a bit of capital or whatever, you can't really get that ball rolling, and you need lots of advice from other people. You need to trust other people that they've got the best interests at heart, and a lot of them haven't, because money's involved. So it was kind of a disappointment to read it, because I was expecting some life, you know, motivation, and I got finance, so it was a bit boring. But if you're into finance, then yeah, definitely read it. You know, if you're thinking about what should I do with my money, how can I, you know, accrue wealth, then it's a book that stimulates kind of thought processes behind that. Because just being in a job working 9 to 5 for the rest of your life, or more hours than that to get more money, you know, eventually you're going to have to retire. Like, eventually you're not going to be financially secure. You can't rely on a job